A big-name NASCAR driver might be retiring based on this leaked picture. This is Kevin Harvick in a leaked picture with a fire suit that says forever on it. And for anybody who might be out of the loop on that, there's been different times before where there's been certain slogans like this. For instance, with Jeff Gordon in 2015 with 24-ever, or with the Appreciation Tour that Dale Earnhardt Jr. had to incorporate his number. Now, while this is pretty cut and dry for the most part, I think there are three really big questions that we can look into when it comes to Kevin Harvick possibly retiring. One, is he actually retiring? That's a big one to start with. Two, who replaces Kevin Harvick? And three, how is Kevin Harvick going to do this year if this is the case? So let's start off with that first question. Is this meaning that Kevin Harvick will retire? I'm going to say yes. And there's three main reasons why. To start with, this is going to be his 23rd full-time season in the NASCAR Cup Series alone. This man has spent a quarter of a century, if not more, racing in NASCAR, and it looks like a lot of his focus is starting to get away from the track. And can you blame him? His son Keelan is starting to get his racing career up and going. And on top of that, he also has a younger daughter as well. And there's just so much that he's probably missed from being in NASCAR for so long. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's part of the reason. Also, his performance has declined after so long. He was great in the 2010s and into 2020, but since the end of 2020, he's been a good driver. He has not been bad, but by Kevin Harvick's standards, this is not the setting the world on fire driver that we got to know in the last decade. And ultimately, this isn't a battle he's going to win. Father Time will always win and has always won, and Kevin Harvick will not be the difference in this. And he's admitted before that he wanted to retire years ago. This is probably something that Harvick's been thinking about, turned back on, and now finally has the opportunity to turn back again on and have his final decision on it. And going out on his own terms now, after Kurt Busch's forced retirement for the most part because of his injury, I think now is bigger than ever. And then it just seems honestly like he's done with NASCAR shit. He seemed pretty upset the last 2 years at how NASCAR has handled everything, whether it be safety, whether it be the way that Atlanta's going. And it just seems like at this point, he's done. And to be completely honest, after so long having to deal with NASCAR's changes and NASCAR trying to force stuff, I can't blame him whatsoever. If the fans have been done, I can't imagine how the drivers who it affects firsthand feel about it. So the next big question would be, who replaces Harvick? And I think there are three contenders when it comes to this. And I'm going to go in order, in my opinion, of least likely to most likely. And I think at least one or two of these will surprise some people. Starting off with, I think there's Cole Custer. Custer does have Cup experience, even if it's not very good Cup experience. He is a former Cup winner, and he has raced in this series with Stewart-Haas Racing before. If anyone is going to jump back in from the Xfinity Series and at least know from the get-go the basics of what they're doing, it would be Cole Custer in this instance. Even if the performance the last couple years, I cannot stress enough, has not been up to par. Plus, this could be a second try, a new slate for Custer in something that he desperately needs. There is no doubt whatsoever that Custer's first stint in Cup was absolutely abominable. It was awful, and he needs a fresh page to turn onto. And I think overall, Stewart-Haas Racing is a better team now than they were a year ago, and all tracks seem to be saying that they're probably going to be better this year than they were last year. Now, whether or not his former experience goes against him is yet to be seen, but if he performs in the Xfinity Series like he did in his brief starts last year, he may have another shot. After him, I think there might be Riley Herbst. Many people might laugh at this, and heck, I would have about a year ago or so, but Herbst has had improved performance in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. I'm not saying that he's been a contender week in and week out, but there's more times that I see him in the top 10 than not, and nowadays, it seems like he's knocking on the door in the top 5. If you look back at some of the finishes last year, Riley Herbst is within camera shot in instances where he would not have been in years past. And I think that he could improve this year in the Xfinity Series compared to last year and really get to show his craft with a lot of the contenders now moving to Cup. On top of that, he's been in the SHR pipeline for a bit, and I don't see Tony Stewart wanting to get rid of somebody who has pretty good sponsorship, as sponsorship has been a pretty big issue for pretty much everybody, and it was one of the issues for getting Kyle Busch there, or lack thereof. And then the one who I think is actually the most likely, and somebody that not many might be thinking of, is Zane Smith. Zane Smith, many forget, was set to be in the Cup Series with Chip Ganassi Racing before they sold their team to Trackhouse. So it's really known in the garage that he has some kind of Cup pedigree to him that maybe other Truck Series drivers don't have. And speaking of the Truck Series, he was exceptionally good last year in his championship performance, and I don't think there's any reason to think he's going to be worse this year. It seems like he's big in the Ford pipeline as well. I think the only question with this is, with Front Row Motorsports improving, do they try to retain him for the Cup Series? Though, even a down Stewart-Haas Racing versus an up Front Row, I would probably choose Stewart-Haas Racing in this instance. And I think the last question that many fans at the moment in the short term are asking is, how will Harvick perform, especially if this is his final season like we think? Well, I think with no pressure, things are going to be a bit different. Harvick's been a bit uptight, and it seems like a lot of the time it's starting to get to him a bit more. And I think that without that kind of pressure, Harvick might just have a new lease on life in the Cup Series. Not saying he's going to go out and recreate 2020, but maybe he does a performance similar to what he did in 2014, 4 or 5 wins. Maybe he could do that. Or maybe he still is a top 10 driver, but the performance just isn't there like it used to be, and the regression continues. Harvick has been regressing the last 2 years or so, and I don't see any reason to think why, talent-wise, that's not going to continue. The man is definitely getting up there in age, especially for NASCAR drivers, and Father Time, like I said before, is going to win this battle. But Stewart-Haas Racing has been faster, especially at the end of 2022, so that might be able to negate some of the issues. Overall, I think he's probably going to go winless as the regression will continue, but I also think he could be a top 10 to 15 driver, and he will be respectable compared to a lot of other drivers' final outings. Now with that, I'm going to pass it all on to you and ask you 2 questions. 1, do you think Kevin Harvick is retiring? And 2, if so, who do you think replaces him? Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, leave a like on this video. Share this video and subscribe to my channel for more great NASCAR content. Thank you so much to all of my channel members for your support on the channel. It has helped so much through this off season. And until next time, have a good one.